work for Hanes Brands. So I don't know if you are familiar with our organization. We sell mostly underwear. And, but what I want to talk about today is quality and its importance to sales and how it can drive sales on your site, and how, if you are an agency, how you sell quality to your clients. And if you are, like the company I work for, a merchant, why you should be buying agencies, buying your quality from agencies. Is it ready yet? Okay, there we go. So, 88% of consumers will not come back to your site after a bad experience. And a bad experience can include a rage clicking behavior, which we've all done it before, like you're in some site and you think something should be clickable and you're clicking, but it is not working. It's not responding. And most of the time you don't know. They don't complain to you. They will just find somewhere else to buy whatever it is they need to buy or to meet their need. For every dollar you invest in user experience, you can expect to see a return of anywhere from $10 to $100 on your investment. And again, the biggest driver of user experience is their perception of quality. So for example, when we think of one of the largest e-com sites, Amazon, one of the reasons why people shop there is that they know if I order my stuff on Monday, I'm going to get it on Wednesday. So that's an overall quality experience. And the time to make a first impression with your shoppers is about 50 milliseconds. So they basically glance at your site, and from there they decide if they like it. It's a first impression, so it's not like you only have 50 milliseconds for them to enjoy your site or to use your site. This is the time that you get to make a first impression. So speaking of first impressions, I'm Antoinette. I have been in e-commerce for quite a while, and I am mostly on the technical side of things. And okay, so this slide is kind of a little bit different layout, but basically what we're talking about, these are some QA terms, and I want to give you some background because we're going to dive in a little bit deeper. So there's test strategy, which is your overall thing. That's where you decide, do we want to do things like test automation? Is it manual testing? There's a test plan. So that is something that people can specifically execute on. So that would be people actually sitting at their desk and either clicking or writing a script or reviewing a script. There are test suites, so there's specific test cases, and there's one test case. And then even down like that is the test interaction. So the pillars of e-commerce quality are revenue, compliance, and reputation. Revenue, compliance, and reputation. And so these are important. If you're an organization, what you maybe have one of these goals, right? Either you're looking to make money as an organization, as a business, as a merchant who sells things. There are legal requirements for like sales tax or perhaps GDPR, which is a mostly European thing, but it affects us because we're all worldwide companies now, because anyone can access your site. CCPA, that's for younger people visiting your site. Those are compliance. And then reputation. That's how consumers think about your site. Mostly that's a loyalty driver. Let's see. All right. Oops, took me back. Oops. Let's see if I can just go forward. Is it picking me up to go to the next slide? Okay, there we go. So revenue. So how do we create a test plan that if your primary goal for testing is to drive revenue, how do you create a test plan that drives revenue on your site? Again, going back to why is it important? For every dollar you put into user experience, expect to get anywhere from $10 to $100 in return. So what you're looking at for your revenue drivers in your test planning is your product. So that's PDP, which is your product detail page, PLP, which is your category pages, is what we call in Magento, and search. Checkout, which is the next step. They found the product, now they need to buy it. That's cart, and payment. And payment testing can be really tricky in terms of automation, but at the very least, you should be picking whatever your number one payment method is. So go look in your payment reports, check to see what your number one method of payment is. So maybe it's Visa for your site, or maybe you have a more expensive product, so it could be an Afterpay or something like that. Test that religiously to make sure that it works every time. And then key functions, so that would be things like login and promos. So what does a revenue-driven test suite look like? So if you are, let's say, someone responsible for engineering or responsible for quality on the site, and your business users are coming to you, or maybe you're an agency and your clients are coming to you asking not what should we test, but how do we test it, then you talk to them about what their priorities are. If it's revenue, so you're going to put together a test suite that covers these specific things. Title, image, so this is on your PDP, title, image, options, quantity, price, and add to cart. Every single test that you run, and you should be testing multiple times a day using automation, talk a little bit about that at the end, should include this, and then prioritize them by whichever pages get the most traffic. So sometimes it's not possible to hit every page on your site. Maybe you have 100,000 pages on your site. And given your budget for testing, it might be expensive for you to spin up a lot of environments to cover 100,000 pages quickly. Instead, prioritize the most revenue producing pages and test these areas religiously, because if one of them is broken, that's where you get that first impression misstep. So you have 50 milliseconds, right, to get that first impression. The missteps on your PDP, they're happening in these areas, so this is what you want to test. PLP, title, nav, images, your product titles again, the product options if you're showing them on your category pages, and the price. Search, in this case, your mileage may vary because every search engine works differently. Some of them are going to show previews as you type in. Some of them will show something different, but these are the ones you want to watch. The main thing that you're testing here is verifying that whatever someone puts in, they get a result every single time. And unless they're putting in complete garbage, if they're putting in something else, watch those search terms and include a redirection message for those users. All right, and then for checkout, you have cart, mini cart, product info, promos, pricing, and the checkout itself. And then finally, payment. So that's the order items, the tax, the total, and the payment methods. So if you look at this list, none of this says check to make sure that if your brand color is orange, you're using orange. None of this says check to make sure that your corners are round or square. So all of those are important. So visual testing is important, but the fact is you can have an ugly site that people will buy from as long as they're able to accomplish their goals. So if people are coming to your site to buy, look at what factors on your site, what features on your site enable them to buy, and test specifically those at a higher priority. So, all right, so let's talk a little bit about compliance. Compliance is mostly driven by legal teams, but why do we talk about that? It can be expensive. A compliance mistake, and you may know the name of the company that applies here, the largest ever e-com settlement secured by the FTC, $2.5 billion. They got it from a company that can afford it, fortunately, but the bottom line is a compliance mistake can be expensive, so you want to test it. Here we have where are the compliance sources coming from. These are your compliance gates. A regulatory compliance gate comes from a government entity. Those will be things that we talked about before, GDPR, CCPA, ADA, which most of the time ADA is regulations are set by the government. Most of the time they're enforced through lawsuits. So that would be someone coming to your site who is disabled saying, I cannot use your site, therefore I'm going to sue you for a lot of money to encourage you to get your site working, but also so that I personally can recover damages on being unable to use your site. Also, if you sell anything in the medical space, there's HIPAA, and then for pretty much everybody, unless you're strictly B2B, sales tax. So those are things you want to test, in particular the sales tax, because if you're a larger organization, you're going to see the annual auditors coming through to your organization asking for tax reports. And you never know what they're going to pick out. If they pick out the wrong order where you should have charged tax and you didn't, or even worse, you charged tax and you weren't supposed to, but you kept the money, then you may find yourself on the wrong end of a compliance dispute, let's say. So for industry, most of those are technical requirements. That's like your PCI compliance. That's set by the payment card industry. That would be SSL, so making sure that your security certificate doesn't expire, using and automatically replacing one if you can. These are API connections, EDI connections if you use like SAP or something on your back end. It's supposed to use EDI. And then marketplaces. So that would be things like you were selling on TikTok, eBay. Those are all, there are still compliance gates because there are this big set of rules that you have to follow, but they're set by industry providers, and then contractual regulations. So those are things like your terms of service, images on your site, and your site policies. Where do images come in? A lot of times, if you're selling products that a model may wear, there may be requirements that a specific image can only be used until a certain date. Your organization may have hired the model to say, be able to display this image for 6 months. If the image isn't removed after 6 months, the model, or more likely the model's agency, can file a lawsuit against the organization and have a huge recovery, sometimes triple or even more the amount that you would have had to pay them. So a lot of times if you're using images on your site that come with some sort of requirement, if you can embed the metadata about that image, meaning this is the date that we're allowed to use it, as part of the code on your page, or even hidden on the page, then you can set up testing automation to make sure that the images you show on your site are compliant with copyright or contractual obligations. So what does a compliance gated test suite look like? So if you're working with a client where compliance is a big deal, or if you're a business where compliance is a big deal, look to be testing these things. For GDPR and CCPA, it's your widget, making sure the widget pops up, and your cookies. Sales tax. It's the value of the tax itself. Watching for non-taxable items. For example, sometimes you get this unusual scenarios like Florida. In Florida, children's clothes are not taxable. What constitutes a child's clothes? I don't know. Is it infants, toddlers size 4, size 5? But the main thing is that you're testing that whatever can be identified as a child's clothing item, for example, under this specific compliance guideline, is not having tax. To do that test automatically, you have to, well, you don't have to, but it works better if you embed that data directly in the page so that your automated test suite can pick up. As it's reading the page, it will identify this item should not be taxable. It's a child's clothing item, and it will flag if you get a failing test or you're charging tax in the state of Florida, for example. That's just one weird example. I picked that one because a lot of people don't know about that rule. And then the order total, of course. ADA. So if you're a larger organization, you want to automatically test color contrast. That one is primarily visual, but fortunately this is one that you can pick up on most automated test suites because it's fairly straightforward, the amount of color contrast that has to be there. Alt text on images and videos, captions, forms, and keyboard navigation. So that's to make sure that instead of having to mouse click to make a purchase, you can make a purchase using the tab and shift keys on your keyboard. So for industry, it's PCI. So you want to have that security assessment done, the vulnerability scan, and the OWASP training for any of the developers there. And so SSL, API REST, GraphQL, and so this is testing all your endpoints and your feeds. So this is really important, and these are the things that it's important if you're an agency to sell to your clients, and if you're a client, ask your agencies to test this, especially for compliance, because this is where you'll see like large judgments from government or potentially lawsuits. Let's see. Okay, so reputation. This one is actually the easiest one to sell most of the time to clients, believe it or not. 80% of your referrals will come from promoters. So those are people with a NPS, Net Promoter Score. I don't know if you're testing at the end of checkout. Would you shop with us again, or would you recommend us to a friend? Those are your 9s and 10s. People who would say 9 out of 10 would shop again, 10 out of 10 would shop again. So 80% of your referrals are coming from there, which is why reputation is really, really important. So reputation boosters are things like authenticity, reliability, and social proof. So can you test these? Well, reliability, that one you can pretty much easily test. You're not necessarily going to use your sort of automation test tool, but you may be able to use like a third-party monitoring to test your uptime. You will use your automation test tool to do your end-to-end testing and your page speed score. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lighthouse or other page speed scoring tools to execute those. Authenticity, those authenticity drivers are on your site. So those are things like site nav, help pages, things that help the user use your site and represent who you are as a company. If you want to know what a company is about, go look at their site navs. right? You can instantly tell, like if you just pop up in the site nav, you can tell what they sell, who they sell to, men, women, children, that kind of thing. So that's an authenticity booster. And then social proof. Social proof is off-site. And I call this out separately because a lot of times you control this. You control anything you want to test here. You control any kind of automation you run through here. Social proof mostly is controlled by the company where it's hosted. For example, that could be a TikTok, Facebook, even Amazon site. Their terms of service determine what you're allowed to do for automation testing. Some of them will allow you to set up a feed where you can automatically pull data from them. Others, not so much, in which case you may have to get creative, or you may have to accept you're going to have to manually test these. And then also SEO. And in SEO, you can put a little asterisk next to it, a little star next to it, and say that ChatGPT can also be used in the place of the search engine. So that would be agentic optimization as well. A reputation boosted test suite. What does that look like? Reliability. So verify site response at brief intervals. So that's your uptime. So are you checking every minute, every 5 minutes, every 15 minutes that key pages on your site are responding end to end, primarily your conversion journey. So that would be from a landing page, like a product detail page or PLP, depending on where your traffic typically comes into the cart, through checkout, through payment and confirmation. So that's what we call the conversion journey. Page speed, so that's your lighthouse score. Authenticity, so in your site nav, test every single link on there and every single image. And that's because for the most part, people who land on your site may navigate someplace else. The two ways they're going to navigate is either search or site nav. So that's why it's really, really important that site nav is so easy to test that you test every single part of it. And then your help page. So this is important. You want to make sure that whatever information you have in here, in your policies, contact information, is also confirmed by your business users. So if you're an agency, that would be a client. If you're working in-house, that would be someone in your call center. And because if you have something that you have published on the website, that is considered like a company communication, meaning that your consumer or your user of your site can hold you liable. So it's important that this information be accurate and up to date, because this is if the consumer comes back and says, you told me I had 30 days to return this. Why is it when I call, I have 15 days? And it could eventually escalate into a lawsuit where they contact an attorney and say, wait a minute, I was told I had 30 days to return this, my return was declined, and they don't say, well, I'm suing you for the $25 that I would have gotten back from my product. They say, I'm suing you for $25,000 because my attorney needs to be paid, or whatever the case may be. So the thing is to be very, very careful that all of the information on the help page is approved. So that's why that's why it's worth testing that information, not so much as a revenue driver, but as a reputation management tool. And finally, privacy. Ensure that your privacy pop-ups are working and that your company, your organization, or your client has tools that help them be compliant with their consumer data. Rewards, so anything you do that's a promo, points displays, things like that. Social proof. I think the screen is like it's bouncing off a little bit, but basically that is saying, if at all possible, go and at the very least grab an automated screenshot of all of your social pages and be sure that you are using automated tools to pull in your social feeds and respond to them. So that's what a reputation boosted test suite looks like. All right, so quality sales. So if you are an agency or an organization, how do you sell this? Because it costs money to set up these tests. It costs money to do automation. So if you're an agency, you're selling it as part of your managed services package. It is an enhancement on top of what your clients would already have from you in terms of managed services. And so what would allow you to do is you will put together a test strategy. So that'd be a separate project that you would do for your clients. They would hire you for the test strategy. You'd set that up for them. That's one deliverable. Test execution is another deliverable, but you want to follow that up with proactive response. So you are testing their site, which means they don't have to. And you're running the test in an automated manner, which means that you know about a problem before they do. And because you know about it before they do, you can contact them proactively and say, hey, I noticed on one of your PDPs that it's missing an image, it's missing a title. Do you want us to take care of that for you? If so, do you want that to be part of your monthly, roll that into your monthly, or do you want this to be a one-time thing? But it is a proactive response, part of your managed services team, something that account managers can assist with that's actually a revenue driver for your agency. And if you are a merchant, you're looking at tools that what I call their automagic. They're low-code, no-code tools that can execute your test automatically. And so an example, and there's so many of them nowadays you can use, but Selenium is a popular one where let's say you don't have in-house developers that just write tests, or maybe they don't know how to code the test out in JavaScript. You can record the test on Selenium, or you can record the test on something like Catalan. You do not have to know how to write any code. Additionally, Catalan is an example of one that you can connect to your ChatGPT, and you can actually ask in the context of your testing platform, what should I test? Write me a test that will test the following elements: title, price, quantity, etc., on my product detail page. Give the URL of your product detail page. It will generate the test for you. Again, you do not have to write any code. You just tell in the context of your interface with your connected ChatGPT account what you want it to do. It will write the test for you, and then you can add those tests to a test suite and automatically run them. So if you're an agency, this is something you can do for your client. If you're a merchant, this is something you can do yourself. You do not have to know how to write JavaScript to do this. You can either record your test using the test recording tool like Selenium has or Catalan has, or you can connect it to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to generate the code for you, and you can run it that way. So here I had originally planned to do like a live video demo to show you guys how easy it is. If you want to still set up one, we can still do one. Just message me on LinkedIn and I'll show you how to do it. But they don't necessarily allow live demos during the presentation. So this is what a report would look like. And I would say it took me about 15 minutes. So I did like a test of like how if I wanted to do like a nav test for some site that had like 15 pages in their nav, how long? It took me about 15 minutes to ask, hey, what should I test? Generate the test through ChatGPT, and then have it compose as in a test suite and run it. Why I'm showing this. This is a report. So you start with your test plan. So here's how you get to this point. Start with your test plan. Create a test plan with the site stakeholder. Create your test. Remember, no code is needed. You can code, because we saw a great presentation earlier about how to use Playwright to do this, but you don't have to. You can click the record button to record your test, or you can ask an AI agent how to complete your task. This is your deliverable. Share these reports and these responses. These reports and responses are generated by your testing platform. This is if you're on the technical side and you're sharing this to your business team, your site owners or site managers internally, this is what you send to them. So when they buy quality, this is the deliverable they're buying. If you are an agency, these are the automated reports that you're sending to your client every single day as proof positive that the site is working. And so here I flagged a little failed and incomplete. So if something's failed, your team can see this and follow up with, hey, we noticed that there is a problem on your site. Would you like for us to take care of it? And this is the sort of proof is in the pudding. This is how you ask the client for that additional service engagement. So at the end, you will share your test results with your stakeholders. So that's basically the process. Does everybody kind of get how this process works? Okay. By show of hands, how many people are with an agency? Okay. And merchants? Got it. Okay. So does anybody have any questions about, like, if we were to take this home and start doing it next quarter or maybe next year, how it would work? Yes?
What do you think on a standard sprint, for example, maintain these tests, the level of testing you're talking about here, what percentage of your development left for services and maintaining your testing?
So two things. One, if you manually maintain it, it depends on the sort of velocity of change on the site. If you have a client that's constantly adding new features, you'll be constantly updating the test. the cost to set up the test is baked into the feature cost. In the same way, like when you go buy something from Best Buy or maybe even a Walmart or something, they ask you at the end, do you want to pay an extra $2.99 to ensure this works for the next 2 years? I'm a sucker, I almost always buy it. But they're going to offer it to everybody. But at the end, I know whether I paid that extra or not. So if my thing breaks after a week, I know I didn't pay that extra. So now I got to buy a new one. So where you offer that is, hey, do you want us for an extra however much? Maybe it's 5% to set up test automation on this at the time the feature is created. So ideally, you only ever test manually one time. And that's when the feature is first created. And then after that, every other test is automated. That it doesn't always play out exactly like that. Sometimes it has to do with the complexity of the feature and other third-party. If there's a lot of third-party integration, sometimes you're running into barriers for the test. But as an agency doing managed services, that's where I actually would put in the cost for writing the test.
Yeah, and we do a lot of automated testing, but that's one of the biggest complications. Typically, so many little changes that are requested in a sprint, and revising the test. The developers kind of have to work through the habit of working with the testers every single time they make a change, because they have to revise the test.
So on your test, are they mostly visual changes or are they functional? Okay, and are you using sort of like the automated healing for the testing?
No.
Well, which platform are you using? Selenium. Okay. Okay, so if you are using Selenium, and I would say you may want to use that as a component of another AI test generation, because the automated healing typically comes from like your AI test generator. It would, for example, and I've had, this is me personally, mixed results with the automated healing. If it's a minor thing, like a button has moved or there's now a pop-up that needs to be closed, then most of the time it can figure that out and it will automatically update the test, so there's no human needed to, none of the QA engineers are going to update that one. If it's something like they took away a whole payment method, then most of the time the automated healing doesn't know what to do next. So I would say definitely if you like Playwright at all, I don't know how you feel about it, but if you consider using a testing platform that has the AI automated healing, that will save some time on the minor changes, and then making sure that it is baked into when you estimate the cost for your client, make sure that's baked in. Yes.
Could you just say again the name of the tool that automatically fixes small minor?
Oh, okay, so there are lots of them. And I just happened to mention Playwright because it's very similar. If you were writing tests in Selenium with, what language are you writing your test in?
I'm not the technical person.
Okay. But if you're writing your test in Selenium, maybe in Java, I don't know. But Playwright would be like an easy and smooth transition, and it has sort of automatic healing features.
Automatic healing.
Or say automatic recovery, automatic test generation. But no code. There's Catalan. I mentioned them because it's free. It's a low barrier to entry. You can try it out, and if you don't like it, gone. But there are others that are really good paid solutions. So, like I work for a merchant. I don't have any like dog in this fight. Find what works for you and use it. We, had to test out a lot of stuff until we found out, what would work for us. And then every team is a little bit different. So, but those would be the ones that I would say use as a starting point. Selenium is great. It has the sort of, I think, greatest legacy reputation. Pretty much any of your QA automation engineers, your SDETs, be familiar with Selenium. Playwright is a little bit newer one, more powerful, and then no-code solution, consider Catalan. Anything else?
I have another question.
Yes.
Not many of our clients would pay for something like this, and what you do is so comprehensive. I think it would take us hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what kind of client would be open to this?
Well, so that's when we go back to what's important to the client. Is it revenue, compliance, or reputation? If it's revenue, then the tests that you recommend are revenue driven. So look at your revenue drivers and offer to test that in the same way. Like if you go buy a used car, they can say, oh, do you want this extended warranty? A lot of people are going to say no. Okay, that's fine. If it breaks down, it's on you. So what you're selling them also is peace of mind. That, hey, would you like for us to cover this with tests as sort of proof positive that it's working? These tests will be automatically run, and every day you'll get a report. This is what you're telling your client. Every day you'll get a report saying this thing that we built for you 6 years ago is still working. Anything else? All right. So how many of you already do a lot of automated testing? Okay, good. But that's not all the hands. How many of you, when you go home, are ready to get started? Okay. And if you didn't raise your hand either time, what's stopping you? If you don't know, that's okay. Just message me and let's talk about it. I'm really passionate about engineering, quality engineering. I really love it. And so this is my LinkedIn page. Message me, email me, and let's have a conversation so that you are where you need to be. All right? Any last questions? Thanks, everybody.